Have 5 minutes for a period for questions and comments when the House next returns to debate on the question. We'll now go to statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to rise in this House today within the same week in which we celebrated Earth Day to mark the accomplishments of some global leaders, real eco-heroes around the world, who in this week received the 2015 Goldman Environmental Prize. Now, these prizes are given out annually. They are significant awards. They recognize heroism, grassroots work, often people who are fighting for change in their communities in very difficult situations in which they face threats to life and limb. We celebrated one of those heroes many years ago when Colleen McCrory of the Kootenays won the prize for her work in British Columbia protecting wilderness. And another British Columbian has been nominated and has received the award this year. My congratulations go out to the chief of the Hani-Wissatine First Nation, former Chief Marilyn Baptiste, who's received global recognition for her work in fighting the proposed gold and copper mines that would have destroyed Fish Lakes. Congratulations.
The honourable member for Mississauga-Streetsville.
Mr. Speaker, Economic Action Plan 2015 is great news for the people of Mississauga-Streetsville. First, our government has tabled a balanced budget. We are increasing the annual contribution limit to a tax-free savings account to $10,000. We are supporting seniors by reducing the minimum withdrawal requirements for registered retirement income funds. We are introducing the Home Accessibility Tax Credit to help with renovation costs so seniors and disabled persons can live independently and remain in their homes. We are increasing and expanding the Universal Child Care Benefit and introducing income splitting that benefits every single family in Mississauga-Streetsville with children. Members of the Streetsville Business Improvement Association will benefit from a reduction of the small business tax rate to 9% by 2019. And we are creating the Public Transit Fund and providing over $5 billion per year for infrastructure through the new Building Canada Fund. Mr. Speaker, people in Mississauga-Streetsville are better off because of this Conservative government.
The honourable member for Jean-Lebert.
Mr. Speaker, 2015 marks the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Ypres. This Sunday, I will be again participating in the commemoration of this important event. As always, this ceremony will be hosted by Canadian Legion No. 4 in Verdun. Legion 4 is the only Legion branch in Canada that steadfastly continues to remember the contribution and sacrifices of Canadian service members in this important battle.
Mr. Speaker, let us take this moment to remember those who risked their lives and fought for us to protect our rights and freedoms. We must above all think of taking care of our veterans by adopting better measures to protect their health.
Speaker, veterans of this country fought for the freedoms we now hold dear. Let us in this House honour their spirit and sacrifice by protecting those freedoms. For if we sacrifice those freedoms out of fear, then what did they fight to protect? Lest we forget, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Saskatoon-Wanuskewin.
Mr. Speaker, on April 23, 1920, the National Assembly of the Turkish Republic was established, and Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, founder of the Turkish Republic, dedicated April 23rd to the children of the country because they would be the future of that new nation. Turkey's Children's Day showed the world the importance he placed on the health and the education of young people, and years later UNICEF decided to recognize April 23rd as International Children's Day. Since 1979, National Sovereignty and Children's Day in Turkey has been celebrated with guest children from around the world. They're housed in Turkish homes and interact with kids from other nations and learn about others' cultures. When these children participate in a special session of the Parliament, a truly international assembly is formed where children pledge their commitment to international peace and friendship. Turkish Canadians are rightly proud that their country of origin was the initiator of the world's first national children's holiday. Children's Day in Canada is celebrated with numerous multicultural children's activities and events that focus on our children, our future. Thank you.
The honourable member for Mount Royal.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday marked the first anniversary of the unanimous adoption by this House of a resolution establishing a National Day of Remembrance and Action on Mass Atrocities, of which the worst is a crime whose name we should even shudder to mention: genocide. Today we mark the 100th anniversary of the Armenian genocide, as last week we observed Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day. Yesterday also marked the 67th anniversary of the State of Israel, born out of the ashes of the Holocaust. It is sometimes said that if there had not been a Holocaust, there would not have been a State of Israel. But, Mr. Speaker, it is the other way around. If there had been an Israel, there might not have been a Holocaust or the horrors of Jewish history. Yesterday was also the birthday of Prime Minister and Nobel Peace Laureate Lester Pearson, who was an early advocate for the establishment of a Jewish state and in whose memory the resolution was established. And so may I close in his memory with a biblical prayer: Oseh Shalom b'Ramav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu v'al Kol Yisrael v'Imru Amen. May God, who establishes peace on high, may establish and grant peace for all of us in the State of Israel. Amen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Newmarket, Aurora.
Mr. Speaker, meningitis is a serious infection caused by inflammation of the lining around the brain and spinal cord. It can strike any time and within hours. It can result in lifelong disability or death. Meningitis Relief Canada was established in 2012 with a vision to improve the lives of individuals and families afflicted by the complications of meningitis by providing means to heal and rebuild. Last December, Meningitis Relief Canada shared beautiful images by world-renowned photographer Anne Geddes of children around the world affected by meningitis. It opened my eyes and those of my colleagues to how serious this disease is and that we can do more to raise awareness and prevent it. Today is World Meningitis Day. I ask everyone here to recognize World Meningitis Day, and let's all work towards sparing the heartache of losing one more loved one to this devastating disease.
The honourable member for Rivière-des-Îles. The federal budget was another opportunity for the federal government to repair the damages, or the Conservative government to repair the damages they've done to science since they formed a majority government. However, they have not changed the recipe. They continue to prefer industrial research over fundamental research. Despite that, Canada has moved from 16th to 22nd from 2016 to 14 in terms of business investment in R&D among the 34 OECD countries. This means that the Conservative strategy does not even work. The Conservatives have closed several research institutions, showpieces of knowledge in Quebec, such as the Maurice Lamontagne Institute French Library, and their funding for other institutions is at risk, such as the Mont Mégantic Observatory. I'm working relentlessly in Ottawa to counter this myopic vision of the Conservative government. In the NDP, we understand the importance of maintaining our science heritage.
Valley East.
Mr. Speaker, today marks the 100th anniversary of the Armenian genocide perpetrated by the Ottoman Empire between 1915 and 1923. After 100 years, it is now widely accepted as the first genocide of the modern era. Here in Canada, our Parliament in 2004 acknowledged the Armenian genocide of 1915 and condemned this act as a crime against humanity. And in 2006, the government affirmed this resolution that the 1.5 million Armenians who died during those years were in fact subject of the genocide. All across Canada today, and in my riding of Don Valley East, Canadian Armenians are holding commemoration ceremonies to mark this tragic event in history. And so on this solemn anniversary, I recognize the great work of the Armenian Genocide Centennial Committee of Canada, and an organization that unites Canadians and Armenians right across our great country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Mississauga East, Cooksville.
The Second Battle of Ypres, started 100 years ago on April 22nd, marks a pivotal moment in Canadian military history. Ypres was a battle of firsts for Canadians. It marked the Canadian Expeditionary Force's first significant engagement of the First World War, and despite the horror of the first chlorine gas attacks, adversity was turned into triumph at Kitchener's Wood, which marked Canada's first victory on European soil. Treating the wounded and dying at Ypres inspired Canadian physician Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae to pen the poem In Flanders Fields, which to this day urges us to remember the sacrifice and to hold the torch of remembrance high. Today and every day, we honor those brave Canadians who fought and died during the Second Battle of Ypres. We hold high that torch of remembrance for all who have sacrificed in the struggle for enduring peace and freedom throughout the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Scarborough Rouge River.
Mr. Speaker, today marks the 100th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide. A century ago, the world stood silent while more than 1.5 million Armenians were killed. In recognizing this terrible event 11 years ago, this House passed a motion to acknowledge the Armenian Genocide of 1915 and condemn this act as a crime against humanity. On this 100th anniversary, we again remember the suffering of those men, women, and children and mourn their loss. This dark period of our history cannot be forgotten, nor can we look aside from the ongoing suffering of countless other atrocities and crimes against humanity around the world. Today, we join with hundreds and thousands of Canadians of Armenian origin to remember the victims of this tragedy and to recommit to protecting fundamental human rights and dignity for all. Together, we stand united. Polarnes miats nagan.
The Honourable Member for Brampton-Springdale.
Mr. Speaker, my constituents in Brampton-Springdale are concerned about the Liberals' new mandatory pension payroll tax that could force a family of 2 workers in a home as much as $3,200 per year. This is what Liberals consistently do, force Canadians to pay higher taxes. We know the Liberal leader approves of the plan to raise payroll taxes. Our government does not believe in forcing Canadians into a single, compulsory one-size-fits-all approach, nor reaching into the pockets of hard-working, middle-class Canadians and reducing their take-home pay. Under our government, there will be no mandatory job killing, economy destabilizing, pension tax hike, not for employees, not for employers. And we will continue to support the vital small business sector, support the creation of jobs and growth with our low-tax, balanced budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The friendship of the communities of Stewart, British Columbia and Hyder, Alaska represent the best of our friendship with our American cousins. The towns are interwoven and deeply connected, but on April 1st, the Conservative government decided to close the vital border crossing between Stewart and Hyder for 8 hours a day, cutting off these 2 intertwined communities one from the other. The Conservatives didn't consult with the local community or businesses, and the government admitted they won't even save any money by this action. The local businesses in the region have been clear. It will cost jobs in tourism, mining, and other pillars of that small community. And, Mr. Speaker, if this situation doesn't sound ridiculous enough already, last week the state of Alaska voted to offer to pay Canada to keep the border open 24 hours a day. When it comes to respecting our friendship with the United States and protecting the jobs and safety of northern communities, the Conservatives are an embarrassment. The people of Stewart and Hyder deserve better. Conservatives must change this idiotic decision. But rest assured, New Democrats government will come through for the people of Stewart and Hyder when we form government a little later this year.
The Honourable Member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
Mr. Speaker, I urge the NDP to actually read the budget because this week the Minister of Finance tabled a great budget for middle-class Canadians. It's a balanced budget just as we promised. It's cutting taxes for Canadians just as we promised. And for example, Mr. Speaker, the new family tax cut and enhanced universal child care benefit will benefit 100% of families with kids, including in NDP ridings. The vast majority of these benefits go into low and middle income families. The Liberals and the NDP will take this away and raise taxes on small business and workers, and under our government there will be no mandatory job-killing, economy-destabilizing pension tax hike, not for employees and not for employers.
Honourable Member for Halifax West.
Mr. Speaker, with heavy hearts we note the passing of a great Nova Scotian. The Honourable Alistair Graham was an inspiration to so many people in Nova Scotia, across Canada and around the world. Born and raised in the coal mining town of Dominion on Cape Breton Island, he never forgot where he came from. A champion of Liberal International and president of the Nova Scotia Liberal Party and then the Liberal Party of Canada, he served in the Chrétien government as leader of the government in the Senate and regional minister for Nova Scotia. Throughout his career in radio, at DevCo, and in Parliament, he was a voice for the downtrodden and disenfranchised, a voice for social progress. He had a deep love for his family and took great pride in their achievements. He delighted to be with them, and our hearts go out to them. Al Graham was full of stories and jokes and fun and laughter. He was full of life. Goodbye, my friend. You will be missed.
The honourable member for Oak Ridges Markham.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in 1972, the then Trudeau Liberal government seized thousands of acres of Class 1 farmland in my community, separating farmers from the lands that they had farmed for generations. Well, yesterday was truly an historic day as the Governor-General provided royal assent to the Rouge National Urban Park, Mr. Speaker. It's a great day. In 2008, I promised to find a way to reverse what the Liberals had done to my farmers, and yesterday we did that thanks to the hard work of the Minister of Environment and other members of Parliament on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker. This park will guarantee our farmers the right to farm with long-term leases. It also creates a national urban park for the first time under a model which can be used not only in Canada but globally, Mr. Speaker. In creating this park, we consulted with over 150 municipal, provincial and Aboriginal partners. We took in over 15,000 comments, Mr. Speaker. The park will have the highest level of protection it has ever had, which far exceeds the protections the current provincial Liberal government gives. I'm so proud of the work that we have done, Mr. Speaker, to get this done, and I'm proud of the community that made this park a reality. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, Mike Duffy's diary reads like a bad novel. A bad police novel with corruption, scandals, and a failed attempt to hide Duffy's dubious lobbying with Enbridge's senior management. But the Conservatives have always had a tendency to give special rights to the CEOs of major corporations. In the last budget, they go after the most vulnerable, taking $2 billion intended for the unemployed, rather than engaging the wealthiest and limiting privileges for CEOs paying themselves in stock options. In any case, the Conservatives don't think this is a problem. They just will leave this problem to our grandchildren. But no, our grandchildren deserve better. They deserve a Canada where no one is left behind. Well, they'll have that in October 2015 when their parents will vote for the only party that stands up for families, the NDP.
The honourable member for Saskatoon, Rosetown Bigger.
Mr. Speaker, my constituents of Saskatoon, Rosetown Bigger were very pleased to see our Conservative government continue to lower taxes for Canadians with our balanced budget. Families all across Saskatchewan are looking forward to receiving the benefits from the family tax cut and enhanced universal childcare benefit. These benefits will leave 100% of families with kids with more money in their pockets. The Liberals and the NDP will take this away and raise taxes on small businesses and workers. Under our government, there will be no mandatory job-killing, economy-destabilizing pension tax hike, not for employees and not for employers.
Question orale, oral questions. The honourable member for Hamilton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, seems the finance minister let the cat out of the bag the other day. This budget's going to take billions from working families and give it to the wealthy few, leaving massive burdens for future generations. But the Prime Minister says, consequences be damned. Who cares if our grandkids have no money for health care or roads or pensions? The Conservatives are determined to funnel money to the wealthy, no matter what the cost. Mr. Speaker, why do they think hard-working Canadians should pay more so their insider friends can pay less?
Parliament's Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, our family benefits will help 100% of families across Canada with kids, with the vast majority of the benefits going to low and middle-income Canadians. 11 million Canadians have a tax-free savings account, with the vast majority of accounts belonging again to low and middle-income earners. The Liberals and the NDP want high taxes on middle-class families, high taxes on middle-class seniors, and high taxes on middle-class consumers. Our Conservative government is lowering taxes on the middle class and lowering taxes for all Canadians.
For Hamilton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the reality is Conservatives have a no-tax plan for the wealthy, and everybody else has to pay for it. They have a TFSA time bomb that funnels billions to the richest. They kept loopholes to let CEOs skip out on millions in taxes, and an income-splitting scheme that rewards the wealthy but does nothing for 85% of Canadians. Yet the Conservatives fail to invest even a cent in affordable childcare. Mr. Speaker, why are Conservatives proposing a budget that passes on the cost of their election promises to our children and grandchildren?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, we are proud to introduce a balanced budget, a plan for job creation, economic growth, while keeping taxes low. Thanks to our low-tax plan, the average Canadian family of four now has an extra $6,600 in their pockets every year. But, Mr. Speaker, here's what the opposition isn't telling you. The Liberals and the NDP want high taxes on middle-class families, high taxes on middle-class seniors, and high taxes on middle-class consumers. That's their plan, higher taxes for the middle class. Our Conservative government is lowering taxes on the middle class and lowering taxes for all Canadians.
Honourable Member for Hamilton Centre.
Well, Mr. Speaker, while their budget was a most blatant example of electioneering, let's remember what Conservatives are really trying to hide from: questions about the Prime Minister's appointment of Mike Duffy to the Senate. Senate appointments are the sole responsibility of the Prime Minister, not someone else, as the Parliamentary Secretary keeps incorrectly claiming. Can that Parliamentary Secretary explain how the Conservatives could be the only people in Ottawa that didn't know Mike Duffy lived in Ottawa?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I've answered this question on a number of occasions. He is quite right, though, Mr. Speaker, in the sense that it is only Conservatives who understand how hard Canadian families work, Mr. Speaker. That's why we're putting more money back in their pockets with the policies that were brought forward by the Minister of Finance. But at the same time, the NDP could help. They could help by repaying the $2.7 million that they illegally used to fund illegal offices in Montreal. Offices that they said they were creating in Ottawa with employees who actually lived in Ottawa, but we know that was a lie because they actually lived in Montreal and worked in Montreal against the rules of this House. They should pay back the $2.7 million they owe taxpayers.
Deputy Alfred Ballon.
The honourable member for Alfred Ballon. In order to be appointed to the Senate, the Constitution says the person shall be resident in the province for which he is appointed. It's a requirement the Prime Minister is supposed to make certain of, since he's the one who appoints senators. But we know the requirement wasn't met. Mike Duffy had been living in Canada, Ontario for years. So on the basis of what information exactly did the Prime Minister believe Mike Duffy was a resident of PEI? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've already said, the constitutional practice has been clear for almost 150 years. But it's also clear, Mr. Speaker, that it's against the rules of the House to use taxpayer resources for partisan purposes. 68 NDP members have used taxpayers' resources in violation of the House rules, and I would encourage all members of the NDP to make the right choice and repay the taxpayer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Alfred Ballon. The more the Conservatives avoid answering, the more Canadians are getting suspicious about this. But the question is simple. Either the Prime Minister was unaware of Duffy's place of residence, which means he didn't do his homework, or he was aware, which would mean he shouldn't have made Duffy a senator for PEI. How does the Prime Minister explain his appointing Mike Duffy as a senator for a province he didn't even live in? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've answered that question a number of times.
As I just mentioned, there are 68 members of the NDP who owe Canadian taxpayers $2.7 million, Mr. Speaker. The member who asked this question owes Canadian taxpayers over $29,000. $29,000 in illegal money that was funneled to an illegal office in Montreal, Mr. Speaker, against all of the rules of this House. Now, the NDP might think that's funny. I can assure you that Canadian taxpayers don't. They would rather the $2.7 million in their pockets as a result of their hard work and not in illegal offices in Montreal, Mr. Speaker. I suggest they pay it back.
The honourable member for Etobicoke North.
Mr. Speaker, the Finance Minister made it clear to Canadians that Conservatives only care about short-term political gain when he said that the TFSA increase for the rich will be paid for by Canada's next generation. Quote, why don't we leave it to the Prime Minister's granddaughter to solve that problem? The cost will rise exponentially by tens of billions of dollars a year for both the federal government and the provinces. Why are the Conservatives mortgaging the future generation instead of building a plan for jobs and growth?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we are proud to leave more money in the pockets of Canadians, which is good for future generations. The TFSA is the most popular savings vehicle since the RSP was introduced. 11 million accounts and growing, the majority of which are for low and middle income earners. The Liberals want high taxes on middle-class families, high taxes on middle-class seniors, and high taxes on middle-class consumers. That's their plan, high taxes on the middle class. Our Conservative government is lowering taxes on the middle class, and we will not apologize for helping Canadians save for their future.
Member for Etobicoke North.
Mr. Speaker, in addition to saddling our future generation with a multi-billion-dollar mortgage, the Conservatives are funding this change by taking $32,000 from the poorest and most vulnerable seniors, by raising the OAS age from 65 to 67. Why are the Conservatives taking money away from low-income seniors and giving even more to high-wealth households? Why won't they help the middle class and those working hard to join it?
Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, it's our Conservative government that has fought for seniors. We've increased the guaranteed income supplement by the largest amount in more than a quarter century. They voted against it. We've introduced pension income splitting for seniors. They voted against it. Economic Action Plan 2015 introduces even more support for seniors, such as the new Home Accessibility Tax Credit, more compassionate care benefits, and lower required RIF withdrawals. They want to raise taxes on seniors. We're putting money back in the pockets of Canadian seniors.
The Honourable Member for Westmount Ville Marie.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, the increased TFSA contribution limit will mainly benefit the wealthiest Canadians and will saddle future generations with a hefty fiscal burden. It's neither fair nor prudent. Canada is facing numerous challenges: an aging population, a stalled economy, a lack of good jobs, and crumbling infrastructure. We should not mortgage our future and stick the Prime Minister's granddaughter with the problem. Why is the government giving preferential treatment to the rich by mortgaging our children's future? The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, almost two-thirds of Canadians who've maxed out their TFSA contributions earn less than $60,000. The Liberals think anyone earning $60,000 or less is wealthy and that they should be taxed more. That's the Liberal position, Mr. Speaker. We support taxpayers and seniors, and we're going to allow them to save more money without paying taxes on the gains. That's another Conservative mess-up. Here's another Conservative mess-up. A government ad promoting loans for apprentices shows workers committing multiple serious violations of workplace health and safety standards. The Conservatives are going to spend $7.5 million to promote their electioneering budget during the playoffs. Will the Conservatives stop wasting taxpayers' money on partisan ads full of misinformation and ads that violate workplace health and safety? The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, our government funds loans for apprentices or subsidy grants for apprentices. And why? Because we need over 1 million new skilled workers in the years to come. We provide grants and loans to apprentices in order to help them fill the requirements of those jobs there. The NDP don't believe in skilled trades. They're opposed to those investments. Mr. Speaker, we are going to create jobs through training of our young people for jobs in the trades.
Well, we actually think health and safety is important in the workplace, and the Conservatives can't even get that right. They're spending $7.5 million in advertising for a snake oil sales job on a budget that leaves Canadians behind, and the Finance Minister has admitted the truth that our grandchildren will be saddled with the fiscal problems of billion-dollar handouts to the wealthiest few. Meanwhile, the number of out-of-work Canadians applying for EI benefits has surged, but fewer and fewer are being accepted. Why do the Conservatives think that helping the wealthy buy a second BMW is more important than helping Canadians and parents put food on the table?
The Honourable Minister of Employment and Social Development.
Mr. Speaker, they think anybody who makes $60,000 a year is too wealthy. 60% of those who have maximized their tax-free savings accounts earn less than $60,000 a year. 2/3 of those who have maxed out are seniors. Mr. Speaker, these are people who are taking money from their RSP, putting it into their tax-free savings accounts so that they can have a tax-free nest egg to live on. These are middle and lower income seniors, and the NDP wants to raise their taxes.
The honourable member for Rimouski. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are dumping a hefty burden on the shoulders of future generations. The Conservative budget does nothing for Quebec, the regions, families. They're cutting health transfers to Quebec. Infrastructure funding will be delayed and insufficient. And what's more, the Conservatives are making more cuts to the Economic Development Agency for the regions of Quebec. Is regional economic development not a priority for the Conservatives? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, the Development Agency for Regional Quebec continues to help all regions of Quebec with their economic development. We are a partner of choice, and we'd like other partners like the NDP to vote in favour of our budget that will help out with a number of projects in economic development in Quebec. The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles.
Into taking unpaid internships with the hopes of one day landing a job. Under the Conservatives' watch, thousands of interns have been left without basic workplace protections. After finally committing in the budget to take action to protect interns, Conservatives then voted against my private member's bill, the Intern Protection Act. Why are handouts to the wealthy few so put on the fast track, while rights for vulnerable workers put on the back burner?
Honourable Minister of Labour.
Well, I guess I asked the member opposite, are you supporting the budget? Because we are supporting interns. Economic Action Plan 2015 specifically outlines for interns in federal jurisdiction, regardless of the pay they receive, occupational health and safety benefits. Please just read the text. We are very focused on making sure that people are safe and productive in the workplace. In addition to that, we're also focused on making sure Canadians have jobs, which they're also against. We're for lowering taxes. They're for heightening them on middle-class Canadians. Facts are, Mr. Speaker, we're doing things to make sure this workplaces are safe, productive, and individuals are making funds. You know, the NDP, totally opposed to all those things.
Right.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. It doesn't add up, Mr. Speaker. The unemployment rate for young people is twice the national average. Too many young people are forced to take unpaid internships because there are no jobs available. Despite the Conservative promise to do something in the budget, they voted against my bill to protect interns. Does the government really mean to do something, or are they just going to leave this up to the Prime Minister's granddaughter? The Honourable Minister of Labour.
I just mentioned what's in Economic Action Plan 2015. You know, our government knows that internships in particular can provide important learning experiences so you get that first job. We're focused on making sure internships are available. They've been available in our previous budgets and in this one. In fact, we've created 1.2 million net new jobs since the downturn of the recession through numerous mechanisms. The NDP are against those things. In addition to that, we're about lowering taxes, making sure middle-class Canadians, and even those students getting an income, have lower taxes. They want to heighten taxes on every Canadian.
That's right.
The Honourable Member for Argenteuil-Papineau-Mirabel. The Conservative government is putting billions into the pockets of the wealthiest few, but there's nothing in the budget to help women, nothing to support them with their careers by providing affordable childcare, nothing to provide for equal pay. With income splitting, the Conservatives are saying to women to stay home, and now with this budget, women will have no other choice. Why has the government done nothing to help women? The Honourable Minister of Employment.
And I refer to the budget, there's a new action plan for women entrepreneurs. Again, creating new jobs. That's what we need to do. Create new jobs. We know that when women lead a company, they actually hire more women. Again, creating more jobs. Right. Let alone the universal child care benefit, which actually will benefit every mother, every father, by making sure they have a benefit, unlike the plan that the NDP have put forward. We're about making sure we support families, particularly women, making sure they have great jobs. They vote against it every time.
That's right.
This budget took no action on violence against women, pay equity, or childcare. Nothing to empower women to make those choices. Women are more than half of university graduates, but when they graduate, they will earn 10 to 30% less than men. Women need access to childcare, to proactive pay equity, freedom from violence, and strong federal leadership on gender equality. Why did the budget help the wealthiest few while ignoring half of Canada's population?
Honourable Minister for the Status of Women.
Mr. Speaker, again, Economic Action Plan specifically focuses on issues with sexual harassment in the workplace, making sure that women are protected there, let alone the number of initiatives that we have moved forward on to make sure that we're supporting victims of crime. I can say that, as I just mentioned earlier, about job creation. You know, women entrepreneurs, a new action plan for women entrepreneurs, creating jobs, and they, in turn, create more jobs, particularly for women. I encourage the member opposite, read the budget. We're about making sure jobs are created, taxes are lowered, Canadian women are supported through the universal childcare benefit. They vote against these things every single time.
Member for the Ottawa Centre.
Mr. Speaker, in this budget, Conservatives showed once again they have no respect for public servants. How can they claim to be bargaining in good faith when with the public service on sick days when they're already declaring what the outcome will be? That's not good faith, that's not respecting the process, and it's not negotiation. Why does the minister show such disrespect for the public servants who work hard every day for all Canadians, and they work hard actually for him, and they work hard for this government every day? Why such disrespect for public servants here in Ottawa and across the country?
To the President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, the government is committed to having good faith and meaningful negotiations with bargaining agents on sick leave and the short-term disability plan. The proposed disability plan gives public servants the comprehensive safety net that they need while protecting taxpayers that pay the bill. This is a win-win situation, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Pontiac. In their budget, the Conservatives are assuming that they're going to save $900 million on sick leave and disability benefits for federal officials this year, even though no agreement has been reached with the unions. The President of the Treasury Board says he wants to bargain in good faith, but does he realize that by acting unilaterally, he's doing exactly the opposite? Is he deliberately trying to derail the legitimate collective bargaining process for our hard-working public servants who do such a good job? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
The government is committed to good faith and meaningful negotiations with bargaining agents on sick leave and the short-term disability plan. The 40-year-old sick leave accumulation system is antiquated, not responsive to the needs of the majority of our employees. Over 60% of employees in the core of public administration do not have enough banked sick leave to cover a full period of short-term disability. That's why the government is proposing a short-term disability plan that would help public servants get healthy and back to work. Again, Mr. Speaker, we're looking out for the taxpayer. We're looking out for our employees. This can be a win-win for everyone.
The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, it wasn't enough for CRA to bully charities. Now they're campaigning for the Conservatives on the pretext of requesting information they already have. They're boosting Conservative policies that haven't even yet passed through Parliament. This waste is arrogant, and Canadians aren't fooled. Why are the Conservatives being so cavalier with taxpayer money? The Honourable Minister. Twice, the opposition voted for an increase to the universal child care benefit, an increase of $2,000 for children under 6 and $700 for children between 6 and 14. Now the Liberals don't want parents to know that that money is available because the Liberals want to take that money away from them and put it in the pockets of big bureaucracy. We want to put it in the pockets of mums and dads.
Mr. Speaker, veterans' benefits must also be an issue the government wants to leave to the Prime Minister's grandchildren. First, they claw back $1.1 billion from Veterans Affairs so they can dole it out in inadequate portions later. Then they deny 900 fired frontline workers was badly impacting veterans, despite their own department's warning, until they were forced to rehire a small fraction of them. Now they announce new financial benefits, but won't cover PTSD. Why are Canada's veterans always an afterthought from these Conservatives?
Secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs.
How untrue Economic Action Plan 2015 not only benefits all Canadians, including low and middle income Canadians, but also veterans, Mr. Speaker. Let me give you some examples. Within this Economic Action Plan is the new Retirement Income Security Benefit, which provides moderately to severely disabled veterans with a monthly income support payment beginning at age 65. There's also the Family Caregiver Relief Benefit, a new benefit for caregivers, Mr. Speaker, and the Critical Injury Benefit, which provides a $70,000 tax-free award to support those Canadian Armed Forces personnel who experience a sudden injury, Mr. Speaker. Will this member support our veterans by supporting our Economic Action Plan? That is the question.
12. Speaker, those benefits cut them from a $60,000 pension to a $27,000 pension and back to 42. So why don't they get their full $60,000 pension? Veterans suffering from latent long-term symptoms of PSD are also excluded from VAC's new injury award under Bill C-58. Even Veterans Ombudsman acknowledges it doesn't go nearly far enough in supporting injured veterans, as it will affect only a handful of former service members each year and none with PTSD. Why are the Conservatives so stubbornly refusing to present a plan that will honour our sacred obligation to veterans and all their families?
Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, this member really needs to start following the exciting new initiatives that we're delivering for our veterans. He should be aware, Mr. Speaker, that we are expanding and opening 9 new mental health injury clinics to support our veterans and their families all across Canada. Mr. Speaker, I mentioned in this Economic Action Plan the Family Caregiver Relief Benefit, which provides eligible veterans with a tax-free annual grant of over $7,200 to ensure that the veterans' needs are met. Mr. Speaker, that's going to support his family. Will this member support our veterans by supporting this Economic Action Plan, which has so many excellent measures for our veterans and their families?
The honourable member for London Fanshawe.
Ontario farmers are worried because avian flu has been confirmed on a second farm in Oxford County, and the quarantine now stretches into Waterloo Region. This is the second major outbreak of bird flu in Canada in the last 6 months, at a time when Conservative cuts have decimated the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. It's lost 300 employees, while 54 positions in animal health remain unfilled. What's the government's plan to contain the outbreak and protect the poultry industry? Will the Conservatives reverse their destructive cuts to CFIA?
Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, testing has confirmed that H5 avian influenza is on a number of farms in Ontario. We're working closely with the province, industry and producers, and CFIA has placed the farms under quarantine and has established appropriate control zones in accordance with international protocols. CFIA will continue to keep the public informed of developments through their technical briefings.
Honourable member for London Fanshawe.
Mario Martinez-Diaz came to Canada as a temporary foreign worker. His employer repeatedly broke the contract Diaz had signed before coming, including changing the job description and the wage. But has his employer had his labour market opinion revoked? No. Has his employer been put on the blacklist? No. So much for getting tough on abuse of the program, Mr. Speaker. Why do the Conservatives always promise reforms and then fall into the same old patterns of neglect when the media spotlight fades?
Hello, Minister of Employment and Social Development. Mr. Speaker, our position on the Temporary Foreign Worker Program is that Canadians should always come first for Canadian jobs. That's why we brought in increased inspections, massively increased inspections. We have brought in severe penalties and fines for those who break the terms and conditions of the program, and we have capped the number of temporary foreign workers in low-wage sectors that a business of more than 10 employees can have at 10% of the workforce. Mr. Speaker, this ensures that employers will go out and hire Canadians and pay fair wages so that our working people always get ahead. Honourable Member for Churchill.
Mr. Speaker, another file bearing the brunt of Conservative incompetency is the Northern issue, Mr. Speaker. Canada is preparing to hand off the chairmanship of the Arctic Council in the midst of controversy and accusations of politicization of the Council by the Minister of the Environment. Let's hope that the U.S. will be able to repair the damage caused by this government. How can the Minister justify such accusations that are undermining cooperation within the Arctic Council? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, our government is proud of the initiatives we put forward during our chairmanship of the Arctic Council, and we look forward to the meetings in Iqaluit. The Arctic Council is an intergovernmental forum for cooperation on sustainable development and environmental protection issues. It does not deal with matters related to defence and security, as you know, Mr. Speaker. However, the fact remains that no other government in Canadian history has done more to stand up for our Arctic sovereignty than this Conservative government.
Right on. Member for Churchill.
Mr. Speaker, the question is, if the government is so proud, why have they cancelled a planned showcase of Canada's accomplishments when it comes to the Arctic? In fact, we heard from the minister from Nunavut, quote, it was cancelled because the challenges of everything happening all at once. But documents show that the meeting was cancelled because of direction from senior levels of the Canadian government. Can the minister confirm that the meeting was cancelled because they expected to be embarrassed for their own failures in the North?
Exactly. Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, the Arctic Council is very important for Canada. Obviously, we have a very important role to play. The chairmanship over the last 2 years was led very ably by our Minister of the Environment. I'll also say, Mr. Speaker, that the Arctic Council is an important forum for us to discuss a variety of issues, including Arctic sovereignty and Canada's claims on sovereignty in the Arctic. We're backing that up with strong investments in the Arctic. We're making sure that our voice is heard at the Arctic Council. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Medicine Hat.
Mr. Speaker, earlier this week, the Finance Minister tabled our government's balanced budget and a low-tax plan for jobs and growth. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we believe in helping families and giving them back more of their hard-earned money.
Yes, we do.
Can the Minister of Employment please tell this House what Budget 2015 does for Canadian families?
Honourable Minister of Employment and Social Development. Well, Mr. Speaker, I have good news and bad news. The good news is that Economic Action Plan 2015 expands and extends the universal child care benefit. For every child under 6, it's $2,000. For every child 6 through 17, it's $720, regardless of the family's income or the child care they choose. Now the bad news. There are 200,000 Canadian families who've not yet signed up to receive this benefit from our Conservative government. They have exactly 1 week until the deadline to sign up and receive the first installment of this increased and expanded benefit. I strongly encourage people to go to canada.ca/tax savings to get the money that they deserve. Honourable Member for Scarborough Rouge River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians have made it very clear that they are opposed to the Conservative cuts to our postal service. Yesterday, protesters even followed the Prime Minister to Winnipeg to condemn the cuts to home delivery that so many Canadians rely on. Canada Post made millions in profits last year, which just underlines how wrong the Conservatives were to cut home delivery. Will they now do the right thing for our communities and halt their reckless cuts to our postal services?
Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, I'll remind the member that Canada Post is an arm's-length Crown Corporation, Mr. Speaker, responsible for its own business decisions, especially its 5-point plan. Mr. Speaker, as the member will know, Canada Post is delivering now 1.4 billion fewer letters last year than in 2006, Mr. Speaker. That trend continues to decline. And 2/3 of Canadians currently do not receive door-to-door, Mr. Speaker. Canada Post has made a decision that in order to save Daily Mail, it will do so according to its 5-point plan. The member should support that.
The Honourable Member for Dublin-Glenville. 2 years ago, a report commissioned by Canada Post predicted a loss of $250 million in 2014. But this year, Canada Post recorded a profit of $300 million. We're talking about a mistake of $500 million. Canada Post used that report to end home mail delivery against the advice of some 500 municipalities, including Terrebonne. Will the minister finally admit her mistake and put an end to Canada Post's plan? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, in 2014, Canada Post delivered 1.4 billion fewer letters than in the past. 2/3 of Canadians do not receive mail at home, and Canada Post must balance its finances without imposing a burden on Canadian taxpayers. And we expect nothing less from Canada Post. The Honourable Member for Louis-Saint-Laurent. The government keeps telling us that Canada Post is an entity that makes its own decisions and that they have nothing to do with it. But that's false, Mr. Speaker, because the government is responsible for listening to the people of this country. Canada Post used a flawed report. More than 500 municipalities are calling for them to do their homework. Seniors, people with reduced mobility, and SMEs are seeing their essential services cut. When will the minister take decisive action and put an end to this senseless plan? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, Canada Post is an independent Crown corporation that operates at arm's length from the government. It has a CEO and a board of directors, Mr. Speaker, who make the decisions on their operations. They have a 5-point plan precisely because Canada Post is delivering 1.4 billion fewer letter mail pieces in 2014 than in 2006. They have a responsibility to operate well into the future fiscally without being a burden to taxpayers. Mr. Speaker, we do expect them to do that.
The Honourable Member for the Gaspésie-Les-Îles-de-la-Madeleine. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The lobster fishery is slated to start in Magdalen Islands on May 9th, but yesterday the Minister, or the Department of Fisheries and Ocean, put forth contradictory administrative notices, and as a result, DFO is requiring a log to be filled out for each outing at sea, and that has nothing to do with the species management. Why doesn't the minister grant a stay in order to allow for real consultations?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The department is in discussion with the association and the province, and we'll be consulting lobster fishers on this matter. We'll continue to work with our partners to get agreement on a way forward. But, Mr. Speaker, increasingly consumers demand traceability of their food products, and industry certification demands additional information from the industry, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Malpeque.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday at the Mike Duffy trial, it was revealed that an expense claim for makeup services in 2009 was rejected by Senate finance officials as not parliamentary business. That being the case, can the government explain how makeup services were then paid by the Senate in 2010 through Duffy's slush fund, including those services used by the Prime Minister? Really? Will the government conduct a broad inquiry to determine what other government or Conservative Party expenses were also forced onto the back of the Senate?
Good question. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Obviously, Mr. Speaker, these type of expenses are not passed on to taxpayers. Mr. Speaker, this, of course, is a question, an unfortunate question coming from a member who was accused of living expenses that were inappropriate. I don't understand why the Liberals would have him ask this question. I mean, they should have had the member for York West. No, member York West couldn't have done it. Or maybe the member for Kings Hants promised to pay back $40 million, so it couldn't have been him. Maybe Vancouver Centre. No, Vancouver Centre, though, she's got illegal campaign debts. So I guess it does fall on him to ask this question. Hearing the Liberals talk about ethics is like listening to people about Sasquatch. You see it, you hear a lot about it, you just never see it.
The honourable member for Acadie Bathurst.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now let's talk about the snow crab fisheries licenses. The New Brunswick Court of Appeal ruled in favor of Sirenius dugas, a crab fisherman from New Brunswick, in a decision and that was supported by the Supreme Court in 2013, but the case is now back before the courts. So can the Minister of Fisheries do as her predecessor did and wait for the end of this process before interfering in the transfer of this license to Peter and Adam Godet, who are PEI fishers, or will she respect the decision of the Court of Appeal, which is supported by the Supreme Court?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries Notions.
This issue has spent considerable time before the courts, and I can assure you that DFO's decision will be guided by court decisions and by DFO policies.
My apologies, we skipped a slot there, and we're going to go back to the Honourable Member for Malpeque.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Parliamentary Secretary's answer to the previous question, I would suggest he stated outside, but it does show what kind of a makeup artist the Parliamentary Secretary really is. And surely, when the Prime Minister is using makeup artists, surely any makeup artist who is given the kind of close access to the Prime Minister would have to go through an RCMP background check. Everything would be documented. So in 2010, Mr. Speaker, when it's found that there was expenses done illegally through the Duffy Slush Fund, will the government come clean and tell us how much it's costing for the Prime Minister's blush and makeup and hairspray from taxpayers?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as you know, taxpayers do not cover these expenses. When it comes to blush and hairspray, I suggest he ask the Liberal Member of Parliament for Mississauga, Brampton. I think she would have much more knowledge of that, Mr. Speaker. But when it comes to, again, to ethics and the Liberals, I understand why they're having such trouble. Again, I mean, the Leader of the Opposition could ask that question, but, of course, he accepted money when he was giving speeches from unions and from churches and from school groups when he should have been actually in here doing his job as a member of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. So I guess there's a limited number of MPs on that side who can actually talk about ethics. We'll continue to do the right thing, Mr. Speaker. We'll continue to provide the assistance to the Crown, and if Mr. Duffy is found guilty, then he should suffer the consequences of that.
Member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, on April 1st, in the form of some cruel joke, the Conservatives shut down the border crossing between Stewart, BC and Hyder, Alaska for 8 hours every day. Nice. The two remote communities share emergency services that will be now closed a full third of the time. Local tourism, mining and other business community leaders say that this is a disaster for the local economy. It's become so absurd that the Alaskan state legislature recently voted unanimously to offer to pay Canada to keep our border open. This has become a ridiculous yet dangerous problem. When will this minister stand up and reverse this idiotic and irresponsible decision?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, our government is of course focused on ensuring our shared border is secure while easing the flow of legitimate travel and trade. We are investing in border infrastructure to support this objective, including new lanes at the busiest crossings. The port of entry that the member is speaking about has less than 10 travellers who pass during non-peak hours. It is simply not feasible to pay a highly trained border services officer to stand at an unused border crossing. Additionally, in cases of emergency, contingency plans are in place to allow smooth passage through the border in non-peak hours. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Yukon.
Speaker, Omar Ahmed Khadr is a convicted murderer. Under the direction of jihadist terrorists, he killed Army medic Sergeant Christopher Spear. He left Tabitha Spear without a husband. He left Taryn and Tanner Spear without a father. Media reporting that this terrorist will now receive bail and will be out on our streets. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety please update this House on our government's position on this outcome?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I'd like to thank the member for the Yukon for that question and for his work in public safety. Mr. Speaker, we are very disappointed with this decision, and I'm here to say that we will appeal. Omar Ahmed Khadr pleaded guilty to heinous crimes, including the murder of American Army medic Sergeant Christopher Spear. We have vigorously defended against any attempt to lessen his punishment for these crimes. While the Liberals refuse to rule out special compensation for this convicted terrorist, and the NDP actively tries to force Canadian taxpayers to compensate him, we believe the victims of crime, not the perpetrators, are the ones who deserve full compensation.
The honourable member for Sydney, Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, Cape Breton seniors, like many across this country, have been left out in the cold by this Conservative budget. 82-year-old Minnie Percy, who lives in a seniors apartment complex and is president of the North Sydney Seniors and Pensioner Clubs, states, she says, I can't see anything in it for seniors unless you have $50,000 or $60,000 stashed away in the bank. Like many other seniors, she finds it hard to go month to month, let alone save. Why are the Conservatives taking from the poor seniors and giving to the rich?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, I don't understand how the Liberal Party can conclude that a senior who earns under $60,000 is rich. Mr. Speaker, it's pretty rich coming from the Liberal Party, which wants to raise taxes on those seniors. Well, this is how it works. When a senior takes money out of his or her RSP, they put it into tax-free savings accounts. They have a nest egg that they can use to draw income to pay the monthly bills. Mr. Speaker, we want to take taxes off of that nest egg. That's what the tax-free savings accounts do. They give most of the benefits to people earning less than $60,000 a year, people on whom the Liberals would raise taxes.
Honourable member for Mississauga-Streetsville.
Mr. Speaker, while our government has balanced the budget while lowering taxes, both opposition parties would reach into the pockets of hard-working middle-class Canadians and reduce their take-home pay with a forced CPP hike. My constituents in Mississauga-Streetsville are concerned with the new Liberal pension payroll tax that could force a family of 2 workers to pay as much as $3,200 more per year. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance please inform the House of our government's view on a mandatory expansion of CPP?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member from Mississauga-Streetsville for that excellent question. There are many other options, voluntary options, tax-saving options, that we have enhanced to help people save. What we will not suggest is raising taxes on workers claiming it is for their own good. Under our government, there will be no mandatory, job-killing, economy-destabilizing pension tax hike. Not for employees, not for employers. Our government is focused on reducing taxes on the middle class, not increasing taxes like the Liberals and the NDP would do.
Honourable member for Edmonton St. Albert.
Mr. Speaker, the government has spent almost $5 million fighting 15 losing court cases, including over $1 million trying to defend minimum mandatory sentences and abolishing early parole eligibility. Why does the Minister of Justice insist on wasting taxpayers' dollars on expensive litigation after routinely ignoring internal Department of Justice advice that his proposed legislation is almost certainly not compliant with the Charter?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Justice.
Speaker, it is worth noting that while the government at any given moment is involved in some 50,000 litigation files, about 85% of them are not initiated by the government. I would also note for the honourable member that in the majority of these cases, the government has been successful. Right. We remain committed to defending the rights of Canadians and to ensuring that their hard-earned tax dollars are spent efficiently and effectively, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Edmonton St. Albert.
Mr. Speaker, Budget 2015 predicts a $3.6 billion employment insurance surplus, which the government is using as a revenue source in order to balance its budget. However, the number of Albertans applying for employment insurance benefits rose by a startling 30%, almost 30% in February. Now that the EI surplus has been depleted, how is the government going to fund the anticipated spike in insurance employment claims?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, our policy is that the employment insurance account should balance over the median term. For example, during the recession, it was in a deficit. In the subsequent years, the account pays back that deficit. As a result, Mr. Speaker, we are able to reduce EI payroll taxes by about 20% in the year 2017. Now, the Liberals and the NDP want to raise those payroll taxes to fund a 45-day work year, That is to allow to have people work only 45 days and then collect EI for the rest of the year. That would be expensive. It would drive up taxes and kill jobs. We won't let that happen.
And that will conclude question period for today. Tabling of documents, dépôt de documents. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and pursuant to Standing Order 32.2, I have the honour to table in both official languages the treaties entitled the Agreement between the Government of Canada and the Government of the State of Israel on air transport done at Jerusalem on January 21st, 2015. Also, the Agreement on Social Security between the Government of Canada and the Government of the People's Republic of China done at Ottawa on April 2nd, 2015, and the Agreement between the Government of Canada and the Government of Burkina Faso for the promotion and protection of investments done at Ottawa on April 20th, 2015. And an explanatory memorandum is included with each treaty.
That's good news.
Tabling of documents. Introduction of government bills. Dépôt de projet de loi émanant du gouvernement. Minister's statements. It is with great sadness that we mark the passing of Senator Pierre-Claude Nolin, the Speaker of the Senate. Nos pensées et nos prières.
Our thoughts and prayers are with Senator Nolin.